In 2010, the Southwest Council of Governments, or COG, was awarded a $3 million grant to implement a high-capacity network for the regional governments. The total project, including local matching funds, is $4 million. The grant is a result of Senate Bill 232 and was awarded by the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. The project calls for the completion of last-mile fiber and wireless infrastructure in each of the communities shown, and the creation of a region-wide government network to connect communities.
Welcome to Southwest Colorado and the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments, also known as the Southwest COG's, presentation of the Last Mile Fiber Project. Due to a partnership with Colorado Department of Local Affairs, otherwise known as DOLA, and the individual members of the Southwest COG, the Southwest Colorado Access Network, also known as SCAN, is in its final stages of being constructed.
Hello, my name is Ed Moreland. I'm the Executive Director of the Region 9 Economic Development District of Southwest Colorado. I've been involved in telecommunications development because it is so important to economic development since the early 1990s. I think one of the first things that really helped our organization and the community was that through the urging of my board of directors, we applied to the Colorado Advanced Technology Institute, CATI, which was a state agency at that time for a telecommunications assessment, basically. We worked with the University of Colorado. They hired a telecommunication engineer and some others to help us, and that was really very valuable in terms of us setting the foundation and learning about our infrastructure and its inadequacies at that time. So there was a lot of interest, a lot of public participation, and so we continued to move in that direction. And then we did put together an application to the Colorado Department of Local Affairs for what was called the Beanpole grant. That was to hook up the state multi-use network to different counties. And that really resulted in bringing fiber to our region, really for the first time in the early 90s, mid-90s, to Tri-State put in a fiber, which will be described a little bit later, and really provided us the connectivity, fiber connectivity that we needed. So we continue to work on that project. I think an interesting public policy situation is that actually this, for the most part, this is privately owned infrastructure. It's for private businesses. But people, a lot of times their internet is just like water and sewer. They want their internet service to their house. And so in order to really make this work, you have to look at ways to subsidize or enhance the private sector investment, maybe make the public sector, like the SCAN project, as talks about some of the participants here, provides a new kind of infrastructure that the private sectors don't have to invest in. So really what happens is in this project is a last mile project that the community anchor institutions, the city, county, fire stations, libraries, public offices, network together in the last mile network, and then they become a different kind of customer. Rather than each individual dealing with a telecommunications company, they aggregate their demand and become one customer, a different type of customer, higher volume, and it leads to more buying power and clout. So that's in essence of the project, is providing the infrastructure to allow the governments to utilize the advanced technology for various kinds of applications, but it also provides the infrastructure for the private sector to come and build on to reach out to the private businesses.
The City of Cortez is constructing fiber and wireless infrastructure to implement a private intra-community network. Cortez will operate a multi-service open network that will bring fiber directly to homes and businesses and provide transport services for private service providers. The network, known as GovNet, already serves city and county facilities, the local hospital, fire district, and school district. The first round of the project is complete and has significantly increased the linear feet of fiber in the city and installed necessary electronic equipment to feed a gigabit passive optical network as shown in green on the map. The majority of community anchor institutions are served by fiber optic infrastructure, and the remaining institutions will be connected during subsequent stages of the city's network infrastructure project. The SCAN project has aggregated services at a price point equal or better than DSL pricing from the incumbent provider. The internet connections went from 45 megabits for $3,000 a month to 250 megabits for about the same price. This is a 5.5 times increase in bandwidth for the same dollars. The City of Cortez has 6 partners using the open access system to provide service on the fiber to the business project. These include Farmers Telephone, Fast Track, Brainstorm Internet, Cedar Networks, VelocityNet, and DataSafe Services.
Hello, my name's Rick Smith. I'm the General Services Director for the City of Cortez, and I've been involved with fiber optics and telecommunications by necessity since about 1999. At that point, the City Fathers decided that we needed to do something and take destiny in our own hands. So today we've come a long way. We have quite an extensive fiber network within the community. And I'd like to kind of go over some of the different models that are being used today and some of the benefits. Use the analogy of a UPS or delivery system. The old model would require that FedEx build a road to that house, proprietary road that nobody else can use, but if they do use it, the price is going to be so high that it's cost prohibitive. UPS, if they wanted to deliver a package to that house, they'd have to build a whole nother separate road that only UPS can use. Same way with DHL. They would build that. So as you can see, you'd have 3 or 4 roads going to each house. That's the traditional telecom model. Plus they have no incentive to let anybody else use it since they want to maximize their profits. Give or take 30% of the outside plant cost for the provider is maintenance of the outside plant. So as you can see, 30% of their cost is built in to maintain that old type infrastructure. I would argue that there's a better model, and that better model is a digital road, open access. It's tradition that governments play a role in building roads anyway, and it's basically the same concept. The community would build the road to the house, a single road, and we would share that with multiple vendors. The multiple vendors would tie into the system at the co-location space, but what that amounts to is now we have a pipe going to that house that can provide multiple services, multiple providers, and the consumer or business is able to shop around and get the best price. What's that mean for the vendors? The vendors have eliminated the cost of maintaining that outside plant. So the savings to the vendor equals better pricing for the consumer.
When aggregating simultaneous bandwidth demands, a community's network connection is quickly overloaded. Internet applications demand a range of speeds as expressed in bits per second. This chart, developed by EagleNet, illustrates the importance of internet speeds in terms of applications that schools or other community institutions may require. The Unlimited Learning Center went from using 4 T1 lines bundled together for 6 megabits at well over $1,000 a month to using 50 megabits for around $600 per month. They used this new high-speed connection to provide distance learning to villages in Alaska, Utah, and locally.
Okay, what we have here is a map of Region 9, and this shows the telecommunications infrastructure that everybody uses today. And this illustrates the tri-state fiber. Notice that it connects to Grand Junction and to Albuquerque. The tri-state line comes along, hits Cortez, Durango, and goes on to Albuquerque. The SCAN project takes advantage of this for the middle mile proposals and allows Cortez and Durango to be a hub for the SCAN project. From these hubs, we'll provide a connectivity from Silverton, Bayfield, Ignacio, and Pagosa Springs. Those will connect to the Durango hub. On the Cortez side, we have Mancos, Dolores, Dove Creek, and in the future Rico will connect to the hub in Cortez. By having dual hubs in here, we're able to connect the two hubs together, and that provides the region with redundancy. So hub in Cortez could have vendor A for upstream, the Durango hub could have vendor B for upstream. Since they're linked, we have dual redundancy. We are, however, as everybody else in the region, reliant on the tri-state fiber.
In terms of redundancy, the reason we have the two hubs is so that we can make sure that access to the internet is seamless. So the key here is to pick two different providers, put one provider in one hub, the other provider in the other hub, and have providers use two different types of technology. So one would be reliant on the fiber connection that is utilized by Tri-State and everybody in the area. The other provider would utilize microwave solutions so that we are not limited to a land connection in any one location. That gives us a total confidence that no matter what happens, the governments will have connectivity to the internet at any time.
In the town of Dolores, facilities will be served primarily by aerial fiber, which is generally hung on utility poles. That project is approximately 10% complete. In Mancos, Fast Track has already installed the aerial fiber shown in purple, and the SCAN project will provide coverage through buried conduit linking local government facilities. Mancos is 15% complete. Wireless solutions are expected to serve the town of Dove Creek. That project is approximately 25% complete. Similar to Cortez, the city of Durango serves as a hub to neighboring communities. The SCAN project linking the anchor institutions is 100% complete now.
This Southwest Colorado Council of Governments fiber project funded by DOLA has been a success for us in a number of ways. In no particular order, I'll start with our city and our city critical infrastructure. This project allowed us to connect to our city water treatment plant and not only save money in private telecommunication circuits, but more importantly, it allows us to much more accurately track and monitor, including the use of video. It's at a number of our water treatment facilities, the operation and control of that particular facility. It's allowed all of our SCADA controlled facilities to now be concentrated into one primary data center, and the monitoring and control of that location and all of our other wastewater treatment plant and water distribution functions within the city are much more secure and better controlled. Secondly, the public safety advantages and benefits to this project are several. We've been able to provide network redundancy between our police department, the comm center, the 911 functions that it provides, our county jail and sheriff's administration, and also the Durango Fire Rescue Authority. They all work very closely together, and this project has provided a lot of benefits to them in terms of increased capacity and resilience in the network that the city and county provides. And lastly has been the benefits to our local economy and the citizens and businesses who are taking advantage of every opportunity that they can to lease dark fiber. This model is fairly straightforward. The city provides a service agreement with each internet service provider, and then as they add or decrease the number of dark fibers to various locations across our network, we simply change the service order and bill them accordingly. Our citizens and in the business community, particularly along Main Avenue, have benefited greatly by increased bandwidth at, from what I understand, not an increase in prices. So they've benefited greatly from the ISPs taking advantage of the dark fiber that has been provided by this project. One thing I'd like to touch on briefly is Senate Bill 152 and the impact, the considerations that we've had to think about in conjunction with this DOLA-supported, DOLA-funded fiber project. SB 152 is a poorly written piece of legislation that leaves a lot to interpretation and a lot of questions in those of us, in the mind of those of us who are trying to serve our communities by deploying fiber to the benefit of not only our singular government institutions, but also to benefit the community by working with in partnership with telecom providers. And we feel like we've skirted the boundaries of SB 152 in terms of leasing dark fiber to local ISPs by using a substantial number of fibers in the cables that we've deployed for government purposes. SB 152 says that an insubstantial amount of fiber can be used for non-governmental purposes, but it's a very gray area. And one other area that this is having an impact in the city of Durango at this time is with the recent installation of conduit along both sides of Main Avenue in Durango as part of a sidewalk improvement project. And since that conduit has been in place, I've had a number of inquiries from local telecom providers saying, when can we work with you to light up that fiber to benefit the downtown area? And at this point in time, I'm saying I'd love to, but there's this SB 152 legislation out there that says if the city is not the primary user of a fiber cable, then we really cannot even enter into a public partnership to make use of that fiber. And with just a couple of small exceptions, the city doesn't have an immediate need or use for this conduit along Main Avenue, except potentially offering Wi-Fi for the downtown business district. We cannot legally do that because of SB 152, and because the city does not have a substantial use for the fiber that's along Main Avenue for our own governmental purposes. We do not believe we're in a position to enter into a public-private partnership with any one of our local telecom providers. So in that instance, SB 152 is a hurdle that is a roadblock to making use of this piece of infrastructure that is very desirable by our local telecom community.
The town of Bayfield is tying into existing fast-track fiber and incorporating aerial and wireless solutions. That project is about 45% complete.
So if I could, one last piece I'd like to talk about is, you know, when the project first came out, I wasn't sure how the public-private sector partnerships would evolve, and you know, surprisingly, we have had, and not only surprisingly, but I think it's been a benefit to the regional community that you know, the architects of the SCAN network have developed really solid partnerships and have helped. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about some missing pieces in the project, and so if you look at you know, the Durango to Ignacio Bayfield link, the SCAN came up with a really good partnership, developed a good partnership with Fast Track, and then some other smaller pieces and some larger pieces developed a really good relationship and have been able to work with Skyworks as well. And I think that demonstrates, if you have the right team in place, how we can build regional partnerships so that, you know, both public and private sector are benefiting. And hopefully this gets extended as we move forward so that, as I talked about earlier, that network, this core network we're building, keeps expanding because we keep building better local, regional relationships with both public and private sector.
So the keys to success for the SCAN, I think, going forward will be to maintain or continue to work with service providers as they build out the infrastructure for government needs. And service providers in the sense that, one, they use the service provider as a revenue or a funding source to complete the infrastructure at a lower cost, hopefully building a network that can be larger than what was initially proposed as a standalone. Going forward, I think that'll be the key to success, is that the service provider and the government agencies are working hand in hand.
And working with the communities with the open access model, the private service providers like ourselves certainly have seen a cost savings by utilizing the community's infrastructure that we're able to access now through this open access network and reach these end customers and give them the services that they are required to have to grow their businesses, which inevitably will help economic development within the communities and add jobs and bring more people into the communities. So we do see this as a good success story. I think it is imperative that the focus is kept as it has been, with building out to the government facilities and then utilizing that access capacity that the communities have, whether it be excess fiber, utilization of their infrastructure, conduit systems, so on and so forth. But if we keep focused, utilizing that model moving forward, I think it will be a great success that other communities as well will be able to focus on moving forward, and hopefully some additional grant money will become available for those other communities based on the success of what we're doing here locally in the Four Corners.
Yeah, and I think really to finish that too is we know in other communities that infrastructure has been put in place, and we're waiting for the local governments to figure out how they can work with us to use that network. And so, you know, cosmetically too, you put an infrastructure in place, why have a service provider come in after you and dig all that up again just to put their own infrastructure in place? So other communities haven't been as progressive as what we've seen with the SCAN network today, but we have a lot of projects that we'd like to do, but we're waiting for government to figure out a policy, a procedure to do that, and hopefully going forward, this SCAN can be used as good examples for them to garner a local policy or a regional policy to go work with, and those communities themselves aren't going to be I guess restricted based on only the incumbent being able to provide enhanced services.
Ignacio is connected to the hub in Durango via Fast Track fiber to the school district and conduit already installed by the town. That project is 90% complete. In addition to buried fiber and aerial technology, Pagosa Springs is adding wireless redundancy loops placed in strategic locations. Pagosa Springs negotiated a deal with an ISP to get free internet for the town in exchange for the use of their land. Utilizing the SCAN dollars, they will be able to use that free connection for all of their buildings being connected by the SCAN network in Pagosa. That project is 45% complete. Due to its remote location, there is still uncertainty about how Silverton will be connected to the hub in Durango. However, ScanFiber is being strategically located to facilitate aerial and wireless solutions. That project is 95% complete.
I'm Susan Hackinson, and I've been the acting director of the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments for about the past year and a half. I was brought in just to help shepherd the COG as it matured a little bit. The COG really was started a couple of years ago just purposefully to accept this grant and to build the SCAN network. And it's been a very interesting process to watch it actually not only go in the ground, but to begin to mature and look at the ways that it can really continuously unfold as a tool for efficiency and effectiveness throughout the SCAN region. Each one of the jurisdictions is given a little more flexibility and a brand new way to partner in an efficient way in many different things that I don't know if they contemplated these kinds of issues when they were first initially proposing the SCAN network. Really some really lovely opportunities to have shared services and some shared expertise in many different fields. We could potentially have shared GIS services. We can share IT staff. There's lots of different ways that we can potentially move forward with this secure network. And then it just gives us a lot of flexibility in the entire region to be able to have our partners come in and serve the business community, and as well as some of our other community anchor institutes. So I think it's been a successful program overall. The proof will be in the long-term viability, but at this point it seems like we're building in just some really nice flexibility, some efficiency measures, some effectiveness that all the jurisdictions in this Southwest Colorado Council of Governments region can participate in.
In conclusion, the Southwest Colorado Access Network, otherwise known as the SCAN network, it really began as just a primary goal of connecting government buildings so the governments could control their costs and eliminate some high costs of duplicate services in all of their buildings. This network exceeded that goal by simply allowing these governments to think beyond themselves. And so the first takeaway was we accomplished our goal. The second takeaway was, as we did this, we found we could collaborate and work together, municipality to municipality, county to county, by simply joining forces, buying software together. One project that they're already down the road working on is the law enforcement, by sharing a piece of software, localizing it in that SCAN network, and then the law enforcement agencies can communicate together to take care of business in the Southwest at a much more affordable price by taking advantage of this fiber network. And furthering that thought, governments only survive on tax revenue. This building of this network is not meant to be a money-generating adventure. Instead, by putting it in such a location that we partner with our ISPs and they take advantage of our local loops by building the middle mile, connecting all those up, they can provide services to businesses and residents at a much more affordable price. City of Cortez and the City of Durango are already experiencing that phenomenon. We hope to extend that out to the smaller, more rural communities like Pagosa, Ignacio, Silverton, Bayfield, Mancos, Dolores, and Dove Creek. We all have businesses that could use that higher bandwidth. We're hoping that phenomenon continues. So as we look at this, over time, our original thought was simply to connect the buildings. But through this 3-year process, we discovered there was a way to have a much larger return on the investment. So through that great partnership between Department of Local Affairs and the Southwest COG, we have been able to maximize that $3 million investment with our $1 million match to bring not only lower costs for the government, but also higher bandwidth and lower costs for our commercial and our residential customers as well, which brings a lot more return for all of us. And this project can be repeated anywhere in the state by just simply following the same process. Take what your goal is and then think about how you can maximize that goal and maximize those dollars used. So I would like to thank the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Region 9, the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments, and our local business partners for their participation in the public-private portion of this project, for all of their forward thinking in bringing the SCAN network to a successful conclusion.